Hi, I'm Ben Brownlee for Boris Effects, and in this tutorial we are going to be looking at how we can use the camera solve data from Mocha Pro inside of Fusion. And we're going to use this technique to do this pack replacement shot. But of course we can use these same techniques to expand out to many other tasks. So let's get to it. Okay, I'm sat in Fusion at the moment, but we can do the same sort of thing if we're inside of Fusion in Resolve as well. It's going to be the same procedure. So I have my original shot already loaded in and connected up to a Mocha Pro node. I also have the replacement label loaded in as well, and we'll come to that a little bit later. So the important thing is just to take a little look inside of Mocha now. If I play back my shot now, you can see that I've actually done quite a bit of work on this already. I've got layers made up for masks. I've got layers made up for garbage mats. Have a look at that in a second. And I've also got a couple of meshes created. I've got one mesh for the front of my product here, and I've also got a mesh for the cup over here. So that's the basic tracking setup. Let's have a little look in the camera solve here. And if we take a look at the layers now, you can see that I have set up a couple of my masks to be garbage masks inside of the camera solver. I've also added in these ones with cogs. These are ones that are going to add to the camera solve data itself. So these are Mocha layers being used to help the solve. And I've actually already solved this. We can see down here my average error well below the 1 pixel that we're looking for. And if I come into 3D here, let's take a little look in perspective. I'll turn my features and we roll around there. There we go. We can see I have meshes created up for the front of the product here. I also have a mesh created for the front of the chopping board, and of course my mug mesh, my cup mesh down there as well. Okay, let's turn those features off for a second and come back into the camera perspective. So far so good. We've just done a camera solve, as we can see in some of the other tutorials that I'm pointing at. Probably one of these sides here, I'm not sure which one. Now here's the stage where we want to bring this into Fusion. So I'm going to come down and I'm going to export out my camera data. And to get us into Fusion, I'm going to take this out as FBX data. We do have the option to take this out as USD, but at time of recording, the USD format doesn't make it quite as easy to work in Fusion as the FBX does. Maybe this will change in the future. So I'm going to take this out as FBX 7.7 3D data. And I can choose to export just selected elements, visible elements, or all objects. I'll just take all visible in this first round. And the important stuff for us really comes in as export the points as either a single mesh or as nulls. And we're going to do both of these to show you the difference. So in the first instance, I will just export this out as a single mesh. I will need a UV reference frame. So this is going to be really important when we come to replace textures later. This is the frame where we have done our painting on. So where are we going to take our reference from here? I happen to know it's frame 277. That's my master frame. So I'm going to type that in there and I'm just going to save this out. And I'll create a new folder. I'll call this one FBX, as will be pack replace mesh 01.fbx, and I'll save that out. Let's do the same thing. I'm going to export out this camera data, and the only thing I'm going to change is export the points as nulls. I won't need the UV reference frame on this because we're not taking out the mesh. And I'll just rename this one nulls and hit save on that. So let's save in the Mocha Pro plugin and exit out and come back into Fusion. All right, so now all we have to do is start to bring in our 3D data. So I'm going to go to File, Import, FBX Scene. I'll just navigate to the folder where I just saved everything, come to my FBX, and we'll bring in the mesh first. So I hit open on that, and we get the FBX importer. Now I'm going to take in hierarchy animation cameras, nulls and meshes. As we move through, an important thing to do is to make sure we bring in the Mocha animations, and very importantly, we have to make sure that our resampling rate matches the frame rate of the project. So this is 25 frames a second, which matches our file FPS, which is good. And the final thing, which is available in Fusion 19 or above, is to make sure that we turn off remove duplicate keyframes. So what can happen is that if keyframes are too close together in values, previous versions of Fusion would just simply delete those keyframes, even though there were small differences. This made for a much cleaner sort of interface because loads of keyframes were pruned, but unfortunately it did break a few things and meant that we weren't getting the animation that we really wanted. So let's make sure that this is turned off, and I'll merge this into the existing document and hit OK. And the reason it brings in this many nodes on this particular one is because I had quite a few meshes coming in. So this is my 3D scene. So I have my camera and I have all of the elements that I have taken out. All of these are coming into this Mocha scene, which is a 3D merge. And at the end of this, I have another transform, a 3D transform here. So to be able to see this, I'm going to add in, I'm just going to use Shift and Spacebar to bring in my tools, and I'm going to add in a renderer 3D right at the end. And let's just have this in the viewer. And at this point, hopefully things should render out, except some of this stuff isn't rendering out because it's not giving in the data that we need. So anytime where we see something like this, we've got the beans surface here. This isn't a mesh. This isn't a valid mesh. So no data. So we can just get rid of that. We're still red here. And I can see that here we got the cup track surface. That's got no data either. If I disconnect that there, now our scene is rendering out. And I don't need these, so I'll just delete them. Bring in our two viewers now, and you can see very clearly the meshes that are happening. Lovely. So let's now composite our 3D elements over the top of the 2D ones. Easiest way to do that is to take the output from the renderer 3D and connect it to the output of our original. Boom. I'll just move my Mocha Pro node out of the way there. And let's take a little look at this. Lovely. And this is now compositing over the top. I don't really need my cup, so I'll just find my cup mesh and I'll just disconnect that, or I could delete it, make it a little bit cleaner. Because we can see here we've got the 3D camera moving around our scene. So how do we replace these blank materials with the new material for doing the pack replacement? It's actually really simple. I'll show you. This is the replacement we've got here. Frame 277. Remember, my reference frame that I exported out was also frame 277. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take the replacement pack and I'm going to pipe that in to the material input on the mesh here. And that's it. That will now replace that in. And I'm going to take that same thing. I'm going to take the pack replacement here and I'm going to bring that into the front of the chopping board as well, because of course I painted out the chopping board there. Let's look at the before and after. And that's really it. Like, there are some moments, if we take a little look, I'm going to zoom in to this one. The beans are not beaning because of course we've got a flat mesh here and the beans are moving in front of it. The beans are 3D in front of it. So all I have to do there is just mask that in. That's really easy. And the reason I know it's really easy is because I've already got the data that I need inside of Mocha Pro. So here it is. It's at the very top. It's my beans mask. So I'm going to take this. I'm going to export out this shape. And just the selected layer. I'm going to take this out to a Blackmagic Fusion shape. I'm just going to copy this to the clipboard. It's come out of Mocha Pro. And I can just paste this in. And there's my beans mask. Let's pipe that into the effect mask on the merge. I'll invert it, of course. And that will mask that out. You can see what that's doing there. And that's really it. That's how you would take the camera export and the mesh data out from Mocha Pro inside of Fusion, and how we could just replace the materials in there. If you want to work with some of the feature points and maybe place areas on a particular feature, we can do that as well. I'll just come over to the side here. I'm going to import another FBX scene, and this time I'm going to take the nulls. It remembered everything that we had before, so that's fine. Again, let's just have a little look. The file FPS on this one says it's 30. No, it's not. It's definitely 25. I'll merge that into the existing document. Hit OK. That brings up a slightly smaller set of nodes, but everything, of course, ends up in this merge 3D. I'm going to come into my point cloud. I'm going to make my point cloud renderable. I'm going to add a renderer 3D at the end, otherwise we're not going to be able to see anything. And I'm going to change the renderer type in the renderer 3D to hardware renderer, otherwise again we don't see the dots. Let's just merge this with the original one more time. Bring that in there. And we take a look at that. So if I come into my merge 3D in the viewer here, I can take any of these points. I can publish those. I can get the transform coordinates from those, and I can then start to work with things in there. And that's really all there is to it. Export out the FBX from Mocha Pro, making sure, of course, that you have your reference frame if you're taking out meshes, and then import that FBX scene into Fusion, making sure you take in the animation, check the resampling rate, and of course, if you're working in Fusion 19 and above, remove the duplicate keyframes there. Now, if you're working in an earlier version of Fusion, there is a workaround you can do that can help to reduce the number of deleted points. And if we come into Mocha Pro again, I'll come into my camera solve here and turn on the 3D. What you want to do is you want to make sure that your distance between these 2 points is bigger, your scale is bigger than it would be normally. So if we take a look at the distance between these 2 points, using my measuring here, you can see the distance in meters is 0.16. So that's 16 centimeters. What's that? About 6 inches. Let's make that a lot bigger. If you turn that to 16 meters now and export the camera data like that, that hopefully should give you the sort of distance you need between the keyframes that will actually stop older versions of Fusion from trimming them or cropping them. So that's a little workaround for older versions. Anything Fusion 19 and above, you're good to go. And if you want to expand on this, you can take these same ideas that we've been working on, add in lighting to the scene, replace the ground using the same sorts of ideas, and add in reflections as well at the end. And so we end up with something that looks a little bit like this. If you want to see more Fusion or Resolve tutorials for Mocha or any of the Boris Effects products, let me know in the comments below about what sort of projects you're actually wanting to tackle. My name is Ben Brownlee for Boris Effects. I'll see you again soon. We already have a huge amount of resources available for Mocha Pro and Fusion inside of the Boris Effects training area. If you want to try out a free trial version of Mocha Pro or any of the Boris Effects products, join us over there at boriseffects.com.